Greetings, adventurers. This is DM Kurt, and there are certain things that make players have to make meaningful decisions. One of them is encumbrance. One of them is watching gear degrade and have to replace it. Now, having to replace gear and track rations and buy new rations or hunt for rations, this makes you have to think about what you're doing. And this makes you have to balance some of your decisions against each other and some of your limitations. And it makes different members of the party have to work together to solve these problems. It makes you have to consider that the environment itself is a challenge. And it's not just kill monster, get money, repeat. If you don't have to spend money on replacing gear, it tends to, or buying rations, it tends to just accumulate and you literally have nowhere to spend it until you want to buy magic items or maybe build your own castle. The whole thing of castle building doesn't come up in 5e the way it used to in 1e, 2e. You know, you reach name level, hey, you're supposed to build a keep. You're supposed to, become, ruler of a land, or you build your own little safe house in your network of a thieves guild, or you build your own church as a cleric, or your own wizard tower. Hey, you go from adventurer to landowner and political player. So when we do CNC, what I would like to do, run the encumbrance rules, track rations, and have some equipment wastage. So coming into this, we also tie into, okay, how does gear degrade? What happens to gear? How does it wear out? Well, one way is item saving throws. Now this came in 1 and 2e. You can find them in the DM's guide if you thumb through the index. So I am thinking about instituting that. I also have to look at the critical hit tables. Now, I had a talk with one of my players, and CNC doesn't really have critical hits that I saw in the core rules, which are in the player's handbook. However, there are, I believe, 7 different optional suggested versions of critical hits in the Castle Keeper's Guide. One of which was, if you roll a 20, you roll another attack. If that attack's a hit, it's a hit. If it's a 20, it's max damage. And then you get to roll again until you run out of 20s. So it's just one attack after another, in theory. But how often are you going to chain more than 2 20s in a row? Another was very simple. It was double your die roll and double your bonus, and that's easy. There was one where you roll a 20 and then basically the other guy has to roll a saving throw, and that saving throw is adjusted by each other's hit dice, etc. That seemed more trouble than it's worth. There were a number of options which were basically, you do your normal damage, but you also do extra damage that is kind of gradient upon what the base damage was. So if you have a dagger, you're going to do a little bit of extra damage on a crit. If you have a two-handed sword, you're going to do a lot of extra damage on a crit. And there's a few different ways to move that around. And then there was option number 5 out of 7. And that's the one that really stuck to me there. On a roll of a 20, you do your regular damage. Cool. But you also roll on a chart. And this chart is, here's the additional thing that happens in addition to your normal damage. On a 1 of the chart, you knock the opponent down. So they take normal damage, but also are knocked down. So they're at a disadvantage. Everything from a 2 up was additional damage on top of your normal damage. And it got really brutal really quick. One example in the, I think, 12 to 15 range was your weapon gets stuck in the opponent's rib cage. They have a -2 to their AC, and they take an additional 1d8 or so every single round until they bleed out and die. Ouch! I mean, that is extreme. Okay, and that's not even at the 1920s yet. At 19, your opponent is eviscerated. They're just cut out, their guts fall out, they're dead. On a 20, they are decapitated, they are dead. Okay, insta kills, 10% of the time on a crit. The thing is, this didn't scale based on the enemy's damage die or your damage die, so a dagger is just as likely to decapitate somebody as a two-handed sword. A kobold is just as likely to kill you dead as an ogre or a giant. So maybe some adjustment based on hit dice. Or you end up with a very Game of Thronesy, very deadly game for either side, because the PCs are wiping out monsters left and right. They also had a critical fumble table under that same option, so these were considered to be, the suggestion was that these would be paired. The critical fumble tables, I never like them, because I never like the idea that as a warrior gets more proficient in fighting, and he can see multiple voids in an opponent's defenses. So he gets multiple attacks per round because he sees multiple openings. He's better. He's a very experienced professional warrior. Nope, he has 3 times the chance of doing a critical fumble. That doesn't jive. So for the critical fumbles, I got an easy way around that. On a roll of a 1, of your first attack in the round, so multiple attacks, don't worry about it. First attack per round, 1 only. If you roll a 1, roll an additional. Not only do you miss, but you also roll an additional chart, essentially. On a 1 or a 2, your weapon breaks. On a 3 to a 5, your weapon is damaged. You can add the bonus of your magical weapon if applicable. So here we have weapons getting broken and you having to pick up more weapons. Well, if you just say, well, okay, fine, I'll just buy 5 swords and I'll stick them in my backpack, and when one breaks, I just grab the other sword out. Well, we're going to have encumbrance rules, otherwise you're going to look silly and this is going to be a little bit ridiculous. So they have to be paired together. You can also pick up weapons as you go. I mean, hey, look, here's a sword, rarely used and only dropped once. Ha, ha, ha. Okay, we can do that. That's going to be my critical fumble table. The critical hit table, where you get insta-kills. I talked with one of my players. I haven't talked with anyone else. So I'm going to have to float this across the table. My idea is, if you want to go with that really brutal table, here's how it's going to be modified. If you roll a 19 or a 20 against a creature of equal or lesser hit dice than you as a player character, you get that insta-kill. On a roll of a 19 or a 20 against a much tougher foe, like a dragon or some mega giant, you don't get the insta-kill. You can't decapitate the dragon whose head is, 50 foot off the ground breathing fire down on you because you just can't reach it. You'll simply get like an additional D12 damage, and it's bleeding profusely from a really large tear that you made with your sword in its vitals. You still get a pretty good result, but not an insta-kill. The monsters on you, on a 19, they damage your armor. You get an extra D12 damage and a -1 to your armor class until you get that repaired. On a 20, you get an extra d12 damage and -2 onto the armor class of your armor. So not only have we had weapons damaged in the critical fumble, we have armor damaged in the critical hits on you, and now we've got our critical hits, our critical fumbles, equipment wastage for weapons and armor, and encumbrance preventing us from having just, oh, well, I'm just going to buy 5 suits of plate mail and just throw them all inside my backpack. No, it won't all fit, and you can't carry it all. So now we force all these decisions to work together. However, I'm going to have to float this across the table so that we're all on the same page, or we all pick a different option. Anyway, that's where I'm at. This is with Castles and Crusades from the Castle Keeper's Guide. Options. I cannot remember the exact page, but I'll link it down below. Anyway, Dave Kurt, out.